Today is the third day of the June 1983 7-day retreat. And today's Koan is number 19 from the Mumonkan, taken from Zenkei Shibayama's book Comments on the Mumonkan, even though we have taken other translations there too. The title of the Koan is Ordinary Mind is Tao. Tao. The Koan reads like this. Joshu once asked Nansen, "What is Tao?" English translation of Tao is the way. What is the way? We'll say some more about it later. What is the way? And Nansen answered, "Ordinary mind is Tao." Then should we seek after it? Or should we direct ourselves toward it or not? Asked Joshu. If you try to direct yourself toward it, you go away from it, answered Nansen. Another translation, it says, the more you seek after it, the more it runs away. Joshu continued, if we do not try, how can we know that it is Tao? You could also say, if we don't try, how can we know Tao? Find it. Nansen replied, Tao does not belong to knowing or to not knowing. Knowing is illusion, not knowing is blankness. If you really attain to Tao of no doubt, it is like the great void, so vast and boundless. How then can there be right and wrong in the Tao? It says here, at these words, Joshu was suddenly enlightened. I'll read it again. Joshu once asked Nansen, what is Tao, or what is the way? Ordinary mind is Tao. Then should we direct ourselves toward it, seek it? The more you try to seek it, the more it runs away from you. If we don't try, how can we know Tao? Tao does not belong to knowing or not knowing. Knowing is illusion, not knowing is blankness. If you really attain to Tao of no doubt, Tao of no doubt, it is like the great void, so vast and boundless. How then can there be right and wrong in Tao? About the word Tao, which is used quite frequently in early Chinese Zen dialogues or talks by the teachers. says, cannot be fully explained in language, nor can it simply be replaced by other words. It was in use in China before the introduction of Buddhism. Etymologically, Tao means a way or a passage where people come and go. Can also be used in the sense of right path for man to follow. Thus it refers to a moral code, or more broadly, the fundamental principle and reality of the universe. You could also say the order of the universe. Has been used as an essential word in Taoism. This was religion in China before the arrival of Zen Buddhism. It says, when Buddhism with its Indian tradition was introduced into China, the Chinese people had great difficulty in translating the Indian Buddhist terms, and finally they used Tao as the Chinese equivalent for Bodhi or Prajna, or similar words. It says here too, although the final meaning of the originally Chinese word is the same as its Indian equivalents, the nuances are naturally different, reflecting their respective cultural backgrounds. Tao gradually came to be used with its Chinese practical connotations. Later, as the Zen of Bodhidharma's line, Bodhidharma, the Indian prince who came to China, where Buddhism was already flourishing with lots of translations of scriptures and building of monasteries. The emperor himself commented on the scriptures, supported monastic orders of nuns and monks. When Bodhidharma arrived, the emperor wanted to talk to him because he was a genuine Indian Buddhist monk. He told him about all the things he had done for Buddhism and asked, what merits have I gained? And Bodhidharma said, none. None whatsoever. And the emperor said, well, what is the essence of Buddhism? And Bodhidharma said, vast emptiness. Holy truth, the emperor had asked. The essence of holy truth. And Bodhidharma replied, vast emptiness and nothing holy. And the emperor came back and said, aren't you a holy man? And the reply was, I don't know. With that, Bodhidharma left the court, found a place, a cave in northern China, I believe, someplace in China. Supposed to have sat there for 9 years facing the rocks. Saying this Zen is outside of tradition words and scriptures. It is directly pointing at the mind, seeing directly into truth, oneself. These were his pronouncements. Says here in Shibayama, later as the Zen of Bodhidharma's line, which stresses the importance of experience and is the most practical in nature among all Buddhist teachings, spread and flourished as a new type of teaching in China. The old traditional term Tao, with its experiential connotations, began to be used as a Zen term, referring to the truth of Zen. It is often called the Great Tao, Ultimate Tao, or True Tao, or in English translation, the Great Way. keeping in mind that the word is never the real thing. The word, as pointed out by Shibayama, is always culturally conditioned. Has certain cultural connotations, or may be free of cultural connotations, and still the word is not the real thing. Neither is the symbol. Symbols are the creations of the human mind. Truth is not the creation of the human mind. No matter how hard we try to express it, sculpture it, paint it, describe it, it's all in vain. The Joshu who is asking the question is often met up with in koans. He maybe so often because he got to be so old. Can say a lot of things when you get to be 120 years old. In this particular incident, in this dialogue, he is supposed to be not much more than 20 years old and traveled an enormous distance, probably for months. It says here from the north of China to the south of China, from one end to the other end, to ask this question of Nansen, who was a famous Zen teacher. What is the way? What is truth? And the answer, ordinary mind. Which can be a most seductive answer. Ordinary mind is the truth. So why fuss so much over the way I'm living or the world is going? It's all ordinary mind. The makings and doings of ordinary mind. A great teacher pronounces it to be the truth. So I need not worry. I'm close enough. What is ordinary mind? Is it the way we live? Day in and day out, night in and night out? We live, most of us, in great difficulty. Constant change and turnover of problems. Old problems and new problems which always become the same old problem. We live in inner division, in inner agony and contradiction among conflicting desires of wanting and not wanting. Promising something and doing the opposite. Not really wanting to do that, but doing it anyways. Our relationships are beset with difficulty. Difficulty that comes with exploitation, being used and using each other, trying to possess or feeling possessed by one another, and inevitable jealousy, envy, sadness, sorrow, the sorrow of loss. We live with a deeply ingrained sense of time. Not speaking of the convenient network of time that we've invented so we can make plans for buildings or getting together, going by train, arriving someplace. But this idea of what happened to me yesterday, which may happen to me tomorrow, the idea of what may happen to all of us tomorrow in the future, close and distant, thinking in terms of having to become somebody in the future, making progress either worldly or spiritually. It is the same caughtness in time, which is the product of thinking. Could go on and on describing this ordinary life of ours, which is not, as the word implies, in order, but quite chaotic, as one finds out as one sits watching one's thoughts and emotions, feelings, strivings and frustrations. It's not a judgment. It is for each one of us to see whether it is so or not. It is neither good or bad. It is so, or isn't it so? Living within the confines of this mind, which is our life, the life of the me. This mind is the me, the I, at the center of it. We hear this pronouncement, ordinary mind is the way. And then immediately the thought, should we seek after it, or how can I seek it? How can I get it? I'm not going back to the first thought. I mentioned that one may interpret Nansen as saying the way you live is all right. Go on with it. This Joshua here probably was quite familiar with ordinary life to take such a long trip. We don't know. We don't know. But ourselves, living in trouble and difficulty and pain, we want something that's different, better, satisfying, more fulfilling, gratifying. Maybe not materially fulfilling, but spiritually fulfilling, whatever that means to us. We're not quite sure. If we look at it, we're not quite sure. All we know, we think we know there must be something other than this daily life, which we've lived for a long time, which is somehow shallow and unfulfilling, maybe happy at times, and then it all collapses again. Something shocking happens, inside or out, and one loses all of one's footing and is confused and in disarray. Overwhelmed with the impermanency, transiency of things and people and conditions, and then longs for something that's non-transient, permanent, ultimate, absolute, unshakable, indestructible. And that I, as I live right now, want to get, to have, or to become. And all my habitual ways of living this, quote, ordinary life of mine, I bring to this new pursuit. Impatience, wanting, striving, ambition. Doing something which may be painful or disagreeable for the sake of a result in the future. Doing something for the sake of something else, which I don't know, which I hope to attain or achieve or acquire as I am right now, acquisitive, greedy, and full of fear of what my life may bring me if I don't do something about it, stabilize it with something. All of that, if you can see it, observe it in yourself, away from where I am, the disorder, the fear, the uncertainty, the incredible loneliness of existence. Living with someone and yet not living together really. Not a meeting of minds, which is no mind, meaning not a meeting of two clashing or temporarily peacemaking egos, but a relationship of love. Not I give you love if you give me love back. That isn't even love. Does one see this discrepancy of not understanding or penetrating or being with completely what is here now, rather abandoning that and moving in one's thoughts towards something that promises to resolve all the mess that's here that I don't want to face? Touch, look at, no matter how frightening it may appear. That's why it happens quite frequently if a person engaging in this kind of work, having a sudden insight in which there is no division, in which there is wholeness. But it doesn't last. And then one is faced with a mess again and one begins to doubt the whole thing. Maybe I was in error. because maybe one has imagined or has read or heard or misread or misheard that this other thing, called whatever it's called, enlightenment, awakening, nirvana, liberation, automatically resolves the mess in which I live. Mess sounds very judgmental. Maybe I should use a different term because I don't mean it judgmentally. I mean it factually. So in working here and sitting, looking, listening, attending, or questioning, face what comes up. Look at it. Thoroughly acknowledge it. Doesn't have to be verbally, it can be at a glance. If there's unresolved fear, pain, anguish, or attachment, question it. What is it? Not what's the solution for it, or rationalizing or justifying it. I have a reason for that. That's already an escape. But what is it? As a state of mind, it doesn't have to be literally the question like that. Rather than in one's mind projecting something ideal and trying to grasp or grope after it. That's why nonsense is the more you run after it, the more it runs away from you. Or finding oneself running after something. Can that come into awareness? That inward motion, churning, grinding, wanting, the restlessness, often fired by fear of one's own nothingness. Can it come into awareness? Of course it can. What is it? Can one stop in one's tracks as one is running? That seems paradoxical. Yes, you can stop in your tracks. The running, all the physical momentum may still be going on. The body takes its own time to come to rest. Without any further stimulation, it comes to rest. But if at the moment of becoming aware of this grinding away, which has a mechanical quality to it, if at the moment of awareness you say, oh my God, that's terrible what I'm doing, I just heard a talk and I shouldn't be doing that, that's bad, then there's a new input into the system with new churning, this time churning against the churning. And never, no matter how I may sound, what words I may choose, do I point things out to tell you they're bad or wrong. They are what they are. They may be extremely dangerous or hurtful or harmful or wasteful. But those are not judgments, those are facts. Do you see the difference? To be really in touch with a fact, the mind must be unclouded with judgment, or else it cannot see, and touch. Instantly and directly. Nansen said, if you try to direct yourself toward it, you go away from it. Because directing oneself toward something has in it the element of wanting, away from what is. And Joshua comes back and says, if we don't try, how can we know Tao? It's a very frequent question by people. If I don't work hard, I just seem to fall asleep or coast or drift. Why? This is what is so often said in this country, which is a capitalist country. If there's no profit, if there's no profit motive, nothing would ever be invented or made or manufactured or done. Maybe it is so. Or maybe there's a very superficial way of looking at things. Is it everything we do for profit? Maybe it is. We have to look at that. Is there nothing we do for its own sake? You could say, well, I do it for my own satisfaction. Is the satisfaction the goal, or in doing something there's great joy? One loves to do what one is doing. One is with it. Not to get love or satisfaction or fulfillment out of it. That's a projected idea. But it arises in the doing. And if afterwards nobody says thank you or you did a terrific thing, it doesn't matter. One iota. It doesn't matter. Not that one has to sort of swallow it, the lack of appreciation, or not think about it, or else it would hurt, but it doesn't matter. Because the work from moment to moment is the whole thing, because oneself doing it is not divided into what I do and what I will get for it later on. And then the effort is not in achieving something outstanding to get more appreciation or fame or thanks, but the energy is in the doing. Which doesn't need to spread to some imagined future. Even the imagining of the future results as already an expenditure and waste of energy. Which doesn't mean, please don't misunderstand, that if one builds a building, one has plans and blueprints and all kinds of sketches and engineering things have to be planned. We're involved with something like this. Enormous planning and time goes into trying to build a building on a piece of land one doesn't even have yet. anticipate what is going to be the right building. It takes a lot of seeing too, looking how do we do things here. Not, are we going to build the greatest center? So a lot of people think, boy, they've got something on the ball. That enters in, and something is awry in one's own mind, and in the work, and probably in the outcome. So, coming back to the question, if we don't try, how can we know? But all we know is trying. That's how we've been brought up. Try, work hard, strive. And it becomes almost a habit, an autonomous habit. Some people have told me I've done Zen sitting for many, many, many years, already hitting the mat, sort of a motor gets going. Striving motor. And it takes, I don't know what it takes to all of a sudden become aware of this and for this to drop off. So that the energy is in the questioning right now. See, the idea is if we don't try, then we drift, but that's also just a pure idea. Or else you're only here to get an imagined reward, which sounds tremendous from the description. Enlightenment. Like a lot of us looking at catalogs, we read the description of it. It looks terrific. So we order it, and and the goods arrive, and they don't look so terrific. Not like in the catalog. And then if you mention, or if someone says, the more you try, the more it gets away from you, then you realize, well, maybe this is the only thing I came for to try for that. Trying out for something. We say that, I'm trying out for this championship, or trying out for this audition or stuff. Because you want to get it. It's a real good test if you find that then you're just drifting off. Nothing happens, no motive left, then you realize what your motive was. Isn't that very valuable to find out? And to question one's whole life being motivated by motives of this kind. And asking, is this the only way I can live? With goals dangled in front of me? After which I strive in conditioned, old-fangled ways? Which means my present life is always shallow. I'm not in touch with it. If I seek for some depth in the future, why can't I live deeply right now? Without a motive. Meaning plumbing what's there deeply. The fear, the shallowness, the boredom. Whatever's there, what is it? You may find if you don't give up, but work that way, that energy gathers from nowhere. Because it's not dissipated and expended in all these other efforts. Starting out with a motive, we all do it. We don't know any better, any different. when this comes into awareness, can it drop? But the work, or whatever you want to call it, work still sounds like applying lots of effort. Actually, ultimately, or in truth, this work is without effort. It is just the intensity of energy, questioning. And if you say, well, but I have no energy, I feel very weak, very drawn, weak. All right, what is that? What is it? You don't compare it, don't think it should be different, should be stronger, more together. You start where you are. What is it? Not with a combative mind, but with a mind that maybe can embrace whatever's there without knowing what it really is, without knowing what is going to follow. You don't know. No one does. Nansen says Tao does not belong to knowing or not knowing. Knowing is illusion. What he's referring to here, the kind of knowing, is what we've been talking about. This projected goal, having read volumes about liberation, emancipation, and the right way to practice, and the wrong way to practice. Not knowing, he says, is blankness. Let's talk a little bit about this, because we speak so much about not knowing, which is not blankness. Not knowing is not knowing. Blankness is, I wish I knew. I don't know, but I wish I knew. Right now I'm drawing a blank. What else is blankness? You know, not knowing is alive. It has no limits. It's not a brain that draws a blank because it's looking for something but doesn't find it. But it's a brain that is awake and quiet. Awake and quiet. And alert. Quick, pliable. Projecting nothing. Not digging in memories. Nansen continues, if you really attain to Tao, I wonder what he originally said. Maybe come upon it, uncover it, or discover it. Or it comes upon you, but not you in your ordinary way of I have to get that, but no me there. Nothing there. So how can you describe it? You can't. An encounter which is not an encounter, because there's no one encountering. It's just there. And he says, of no doubt. That's a very good description, no doubt. Doubting is thinking. Thinking is doubting. It's the function almost of thinking to doubt. Or let's say one of the functions. Which is all right. But thinking cannot resolve the doubt. Can only raise it. The resolution of doubt is totally beyond thought. It's the absence or the quietness of thought. Which, please don't misunderstand to say you have to get rid of your thoughts. Try and do it. Happens on its own when you don't try, because trying to do it is another barrage of thoughts. I shouldn't have thoughts, etc. So leave thoughts come and go. Are you getting involved in the content of them? Then that's what happens. And there may be doubt about what you're doing. Am I ever going to get there? Am I cut out for this? I'm not, the others seem to be. Or I'm doing so much better than all the rest. It's the other side of it. Which is the circus of the little mind, the me. If you really attain to Tao of no doubt, it is like the great void, so vast and boundless. But don't make an image of it, because then it's an image, and that's not the void. Void is no image. That's why it's called void. Just that. No limit, meaning no right or wrong. Is it possible for human beings to function freely without motive? With great energy, but without motive? Just because we've always functioned with motive and have heard you have to have motive, you can't function without it, it doesn't mean a thing. They're just traditional ideas. Can you discover motive? And its functioning in division. It's producing division. Because my motive may not quite be your motive. So there's a clash of motives. Or else we seek out people who seem to have the same motive so we can all be together, feel a togetherness, but it doesn't last very long. And then some people's motives change and there's division, clash. It's only without motive that there cannot possibly be clash. But love. which needs no motive, has no motive, and cannot be attained through motive. That's the beauty of it. We will end here for today.